What you're sharing in that presentation is just anything that that ideal client needs to be very clear on their next steps. It might be working with you, but it might not. And if they feel like you've been a helpful consultant during the process, it's going to be that much easier for them to make the decision to work with you if they want to get help with that specific problem. But if they feel like they came to the presentation and they didn't really get anything except for a sales pitch, well, then they're just going to want to go work with someone else because they still have the problem. They signed up for your presentation, but they might not want to work with you.
So you're a smart business committed to innovation, to service and to modern marketing, and you're asking, what's next? Wondering how you can become even more innovative. My name is Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and this is the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Hi innovators, it's great to be back with another episode. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. I trust you enjoyed our most recent interviews with Simon Lamy of The Brain Wheel and Harry Duran of Podcast Junkies. Today, I'm really excited to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest, LaTisha Styles. She's a lifestyle influencer, a speaker, and a marketing consultant who helps her clients grow their online business. LaTisha has been featured in Forbes, in Fast Company, Inc. magazine, and Business Insider, among other notable publications. She's the founder of Creating Coins, a company that provides courses and training in digital marketing. Today's episode is brought to you by the Transformational Marketing Hub, where you'll find a host of free and exceptionally useful information to help you transform your marketing. You can access the Transformational Marketing Hub by visiting innovabizz.co/VIP. If you don't yet have an account, don't worry, just click on the blue Take a Peek Inside button. As I said, it's free and exceptionally useful, so go check it out. In our discussion today, LaTisha talked to me about how to set up a marketing system that can grow your revenue by a factor of 10. We talked about the power of video and webinars to build a relationship with people online. And LaTisha emphasized about always improving the system by running tests. She said everything is a test. Without further ado, then let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from LaTisha Styles. Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today from Memphis, Tennessee in the USA, LaTisha Styles. She's a lifestyle influencer, a speaker, a marketing consultant who helps clients grow an online business. LaTisha has been marketing her own business online for more than 8 years, and during that time, she's been featured in notable magazines like Forbes, Fast Company, Inc. magazine, and Business Insider, among many others. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, LaTisha. It's a privilege to have you here as a guest.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Ty Crandall, who we had on episode 164 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, suggested that we interview you, LaTisha. So a big hello to Ty.
Yeah, I want to thank him. He definitely made that link for me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, you're also founder of youngfinances.com and president of Financial Success Media, which is your company, I think, that you run your business under. Now, in that, you do training programs and help service-based entrepreneurs build a lead-generating system that attracts new clients. So I'm really looking forward to exploring the topic of marketing and systems. I really love systems and frameworks, as my listeners will know. So I'm looking forward to digging deeper into that and unpacking that some more today. Before we do talk about all things marketing and online business, though, let's hear a bit more about your background. How did you get to where you are today, and what were some of the key moments in that journey?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually glad that you mentioned youngfinances.com because that's part of the beginning of my journey. I started out as a personal finance blogger. And really that began because I graduated into the Great Recession. I was having a hard time finding a job. I had just graduated with a finance degree. And unfortunately, there weren't many employers who were looking for recent finance graduates. I decided that I wanted to share my knowledge and show a potential employer that I did know something. And so I decided to start a personal finance site. That quickly grew from something that was intended to be sort of an online resume, and it grew into a side project as I finally got hired about 11 months after graduating. And then from there, it continued to grow into what almost became a full-time income. I got to the point where I wanted to take it full-time. I was so excited to create something where I could work for myself. And so I decided to, after a couple of years in the workforce, I decided to quit my job. I figured, hey, let's see if I can make this, this website and blog business take off. Unfortunately, it didn't work as well as I wanted it to. I didn't have a business model that was sustainable for me. I was at the mercy of affiliate programs and working with other businesses who were paying me a commission. And one of those programs closed the door. And when they did that, the majority of my income went away just like that. So I had to make the tough decision to go back to a full-time job, even though I knew that I was destined to be an entrepreneur. Long story short, I decided that second time around was going to be, it for me. And I discovered that I needed to use my own skills in order to create a sustainable business model. So I started helping small business owners who were not familiar with blogging and online marketing and social media management. And I started to take on a couple of clients under the umbrella of Financial Success Media, taking a couple of clients as consulting clients. And that quickly grew into what is now a more than full-time income in the area of coaching and consulting. I help business owners with online marketing, creating systems, and I have been self-employed for 3+ years now, and I'm just enjoying every single moment of the journey.
Yeah, there's so much I love about that story. I mean, you started off using blogging as a platform simply to get yourself known, but then that kind of grew to a business because you were presumably sharing information that was of value to people. And then the learning from your first business experience of being dependent on one significant client that when they shut the doors kind of pulled out the rug from underneath that business. So the importance of having a sustainable business model is really good. And then you learned from that mistake and you said, next time, now this is going to be different. This is going to be sustainable. So many good things in that story. Yeah,
absolutely.
So give us you touched on it at the end of that conversation, but give us a bit of a snapshot of what you do today and why you do it.
Sure. So today I run a primarily course-based business. I also offer some coaching along with that to emerging entrepreneurs. So these are people who they are interested in getting their own business started. And I primarily help them in the area of marketing, helping them to create offers for their potential clients, helping them to market themselves online, set up that website, that social media profile, the email marketing. And the biggest piece of what I do centers around creating an automated system that runs for them, whether they're awake or whether they're asleep, and it allows them to gain coaching clients online. And I primarily do that with a video-based funnel. So it's just a short video presentation where their potential client can watch it, see exactly who they are, get to know, like, and trust them, and then ultimately make that decision to book a call with them or to purchase directly. And that's exactly how I built my coaching business. It built really quickly over the past couple of years, realized that I enjoyed teaching and courses a lot more and started transitioning into that. And I would say that my my big why is that I've always wanted to be a teacher. When I think back to even when I was a kid and, in school, your teacher asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think my first answer was teacher. And I've always had that at the core of what I do. I enjoy teaching. I love it. And that's essentially my biggest why. I feel like I can impart the knowledge that I have to other business owners. And that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny, isn't it? Because you talked a lot about marketing and how you help your clients with their marketing. And the idea of doing marketing is really about teaching people what your offer is. And so the concept of wanting to be a teacher is really great. I remember my dad wanted me to be a teacher when I started university, and I said, there's no way I'm going to be a teacher. And I had this picture in my mind of being stuck in a high school, and I know what I was like as a kid, so giving teachers grief all the time. And I didn't want to be on the receiving end of that. So we had this big thing, and I didn't become a teacher, but now I'm here in the marketing business, telling people you've got to get out there and teach your audience.
Right. That's come full circle.
That's right. Yeah. So it's great. Yeah. So what do you think are some of the biggest challenges businesses, and particularly small businesses? So you said coaching clients. So your clients mainly in the coaching space?
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you see as their biggest challenges in marketing?
I would say one of the biggest challenges is the idea that, and I see this a lot with my clients and potential clients in my audience when I ask questions. Often they say, how do I get past this whole relationship building thing and essentially get right to the point? And it's interesting because, I love marketing. I feel like marketing is that journey. It's kind of taking someone through the thought process. It's working with all of that buyer psychology, and it's the art and the science. So I love it. But a lot of the clients that I work with, and some of the people in my audience as well, they don't see that as very much fun. And all they really want to know is, how do I create a system that essentially does the work for me, and someone comes to me and they're pre-sold, and all I have to do is get on the phone and close the sale. And so I would say and that's absolutely possible. But before you can get there, there's a couple things that you have to know first. And that requires conversations with your audience. It requires conversations with potential clients. It requires a lot of research. It's the slog. It's kind of the boring part of marketing. And the challenge is that often they don't see that as the exciting part. They see it as the thing to get out of the way so that they can get to, the ultimate goal. And so I would say that's kind of the main challenge. And part of my job is to share with them that can be fun and that's exciting. And it's often, once you start digging into it, you often find that you start to focus less on the money and the client saying yes and all of those things that you used to focus on, and you start enjoying the journey, which makes the ending that much easier, and it just happens effortlessly.
Yeah, I love that you pointed out that the relationship part still is very important, even though, as you say, you can build systems and you can automate systems that really make your marketing work 24/7 or enable you to scale up something, particularly if you've got online courses where, you can teach many people with the one asset, but you have to scale your marketing to be able to do that. So the automation part really allows that. But I think one of the things that I see getting lost in today's world of technology and automation is that relationship part of it. So I don't know how you see that, but there's a big risk of that. So I like your philosophy of let's make that fun, because it can be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been seeing that as well. I think obviously with the internet, there's a little bit less of maybe a personal interaction because before, pre-internet, there was at least a phone call, if not an in-person meeting, in order to warm up that client before they got to know you. And now we do so much automation with sending out blast emails and even blast text messages. And it's a good and a bad thing in a way. I would say it's a good thing because it allows you to maximize your time. And instead of trying to keep up with everyone who could potentially be a client, you essentially allow the systems to filter the people in who are already interested. But then it also can be a bad thing because, maybe there are some people who are interested, but, they're just not paying attention to their email, or they're not planning to respond, or they think that it's just an automated system. And so they don't feel that personal touch that essentially, they're used to be in business. So, it's a balance, really.
So tell us a little bit more about your system. You mentioned earlier that there was a video and then you basically took people that were interested who watched the video on a kind of a journey. So tell us a little bit about the system.
Sure. So I think the first time that I discovered this, I was in the process of trying to build the coaching business. And I had hired a business coach so that I could make sure that I was doing everything the right way. But she wasn't as proficient in marketing as what I needed. I needed someone who could really help me to figure out how to get more people in the door. And she brought in other experts, but, I really needed help with just like, how do I get clients? So I decided to, while I was waiting to try to figure it out, I decided to just start doing free workshops and paid workshops. So I would do a free workshop online, often called a webinar, to encourage people to come over to the paid workshop. And then the paid workshop, I priced it, $47, $97, nothing super expensive. And I just continued to alternate. So I would try to build my list with the free workshops, and then I would attempt to bring some money in the door with the paid workshops. And then as people came on my list, I would ask them if they wanted to set up a call and then to book me, so we could talk about potentially working together. And I continued to do that: free workshop, paid workshop, free workshop, paid workshop. And then I remember there was one day where I had the replay for my free workshop that was out there, and I was starting to learn some ads. So I was using Facebook ads. And this was someone who was brand new. She had never met me before. She wasn't on my list. She saw the Facebook ad. She signed up for my email list and watched the webinar. And a couple hours later, she set up a phone call with me, and then she booked me for one-on-one coaching, which was like my largest, it's the largest package that I have. And that was sort of an aha moment for me. I said, someone can get to know me in 1 hour from a free training, then obviously this is just what I need to keep doing. So I decided to start learning more about that, digging deep. I started researching. I started working with a lot of other mentors who specifically were good at webinars and video trainings. I started doing a lot of different research and really trying to hone my skills in that area. And I started getting really good at it, not only for myself, but I had other people who obviously were watching me, and they needed clients also. And so they just started asking me questions. So I started sharing with them what I had learned, and eventually realized that I really, really love doing that. And I just continue sharing that. So the system that I use is basically the same. It's a webinar that you can host live, or you can have it pre-recorded, and anywhere from about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And basically it builds that know, like, and trust factor, where someone can get to know you. They can get some education on who you are, what you do, and how you can help them, and why what you do is better than what else they can get. So it kind of has that unique value proposition built in. And then at the end, it just invites them to set up a phone call. I also have an email sequence that goes out afterwards to encourage them back to the phone call or back to the replay if they didn't get a chance to watch the entire thing. And obviously there's some systems and things that kind of make that process a lot easier. But essentially that's what I started doing for myself. And I created a sustainable income in my coaching business by hosting those workshops, free workshops, creating that replay, and then running ads to the replays. And that's really what changed everything for me.
Okay. That's a pretty comprehensive system. So in terms of the beginning of that system, how did you find the right audience to pitch the initial webinar at, or the initial workshop?
That's a great question, because it is some trial and error and testing. I started by kind of just testing the standard people that my audience would follow. So, for example, I started looking at Facebook interests. So, for example, if I knew my audience was following a specific person, and if I could target that person or that audience, that person's audience on Facebook, I would start using those people. And I just continued to test different audiences with Facebook ads, and with ads in general. Everything is a test. So I would start out with testing one audience and then see if those people converted into phone calls. If they did, then I would keep those that ad running. If it didn't convert, or if the price was too high, then I would try testing out different audiences. And eventually, the great thing with Facebook is that it learns very quickly. And so it started learning for me, the type of people who would respond to my ad. And now I primarily use lookalike audiences, and I'll upload my email list and ask Facebook to find people like those people. And so it's a lot easier now. But when I first started, I had to kind of test out different audiences and just go based on who I thought might be interested.
Yeah, there's some great advice in that, in terms of how to identify the right audience in Facebook. Now, you wrote a recent blog post about identifying your ideal client, and this is one area that I'm really strong on, getting to know who it is you actually want to come into that system to start with, because I think that's where a lot of people don't get focused enough, and as a result, I think even the best systems can fall down at that point. So tell us a little bit more about how you go about identifying the ideal client.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I will tell anyone is that Facebook ads, or ads in general, is essentially like pouring gasoline on a fire. But unless you have that fire burning first, you're basically just pouring gasoline on the dirt. And why would you want to do that, right? So before we start looking at Facebook ads and all of that, the first thing I like to do is actually have a working funnel and actually test out the funnel. And the way that I do this is by speaking to, by testing my organic audience. And so wherever I have the strongest presence, for me, it's always been Facebook. I have a very strong presence on Facebook. I've been on it ever since they opened it up to my college. So I've just been on Facebook for a very long time, have a large audience there. Some people have an audience that's reactive and engaging on LinkedIn. Other people, it might be Twitter. So wherever that initial audience is. And the first thing I'll do is I'll ask a question and say something like, is this something that you guys might be interested in? I'm considering putting together a training about this. Does it sound good? So basically idea validation. And I'll look to see essentially who responds. Then I sort of have another organic process where I start looking at the people who respond. I try to find similarities between them. And this is what I did at the start. Like I said, at this point, I've essentially have a core audience that I know that I'm going after. But at the start, I was looking at the people who responded. I looked at what similarities they had, even down to the music that they liked, the stars that they liked, the videos and the movies that they watch, like the types of movies. And I tried to essentially create a customer profile the same way that Netflix knows what movies to suggest to you based on movies that other people watch who are similar to you, and YouTube and all of that. So I guess I essentially created my own organic algorithm. And I started to find that these certain types of people were responding. In general, they were women. In general, they were sort of just getting started. In general, they were working full time. And so that's how I started to narrow down my audience. Then from there, when I see who's responding, I'll ask them to take one step further and ask them to do a short survey. I typically have a 5-question survey. It's a very standard survey that asks about just the one topic. And I'll say, I know that you'd like this training on this topic. Would you mind helping me out so I know exactly what I should share? And my goal is to get at least 25 responses to that survey. I'll look at the responses, look at the answers. If there's anything I'm unclear on or if I'm not sure about, I'll usually go back to my audience and ask them again. I won't go back to the specific person because it's an anonymous survey, but I might say something like, hey, I got a question about this. Can you guys explain to me? I'm not quite sure, what you'd like to know about this topic. And as I do that, it essentially starts to validate the idea. It validates the training. And now I know for a fact that when I create that training, that people are going to be excited about it. And once I start getting those first couple people who already said they were interested to come through the funnel, if they take action, that's how I know that now I can start going after, using ads, more people just like them. And that if all else is true and everything holds, all my assumptions hold, that the new people coming in should start taking those same actions.
Yeah, I really like that. It's an important lesson for people to make sure they validate ideas in some way. I mean, this is a really good and comprehensive multi-step way to do it, but validate the idea with the audience that you're pitching it at before investing a lot of time in actually building whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I had another question, but I've lost track of that. I guess one of the things I'm curious about is how do you find people actually engaging with that? Is that just a matter of getting in front of the right audience with that first question?
Yeah, but I would say that because in general, if you're just starting and you're not really sure who that audience might be, then you might think about a broad target. So for example, if your target is construction workers and you have your Facebook page is a personal page or your LinkedIn page is something where you haven't really started connecting with people, start going to the search box and start connecting with people who are construction workers. Then at least you'll know that you have an audience of construction workers because those are the people that you want to work with. And then you can start kind of that idea validation phase, because if your connections are kind of scattered and they're not necessarily targeted to the general audience that you want to reach, then you're not going to get the data that you want. And so that's why I just started building my community and my network with coaches, with people who wanted to transform lives, with people who were interested in getting marketing help. And I feel like in this day and age, we don't really have a personal profile or a personal LinkedIn or a personal Twitter. In general, if you're in business, those platforms they're a platform for you to continue to market your business, not so that you can just blast everybody with what's on sale and what you're offering, but so you can have meaningful conversations in a business framework. And that's essentially how I use those platforms.
So, and you do all this before you start advertising?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in the pre-interview, you talked to me a little bit about introverts and introverts doing marketing and the challenges that they might have. Now, this system a lot of it is online, and it might seem that it's great for introverts to not have to go out into an environment where their energy might be drained a little bit more, or where they might find it tiring to keep their energy high. And yet the principle is exactly the same, isn't it? Because it's about building a relationship and finding out what it is to help. So talk to us a little bit about that idea of introverts and marketing and why they might feel challenged by it.
Sure. And I think that's what's really unique about the system and being able to do everything online. I am an introvert myself. I understand that I need alone time to recharge my energy. I gain energy by thinking my thoughts versus an introvert who likes to speak their thoughts out, and they gain energy by being around other people. So when I first started my business, I thought that I needed to go to networking events and go to Chamber of Commerce meetings and all of these things where I wasn't able to be my full vibrant self because it honestly drained me to be at those events. And so once I discovered that I could essentially have the same process of meeting someone explaining to them about what I do, finding out that they're a good fit by asking them a few questions to essentially qualify them, and then offering them my service. And I could take that entire process online. It was a game changer for me. And so essentially how this works really well for introverts is that we love having meaningful conversations. So if we have the opportunity to chat with someone one-on-one, and it's very specific and it's a deep and meaningful conversation, we love that. The thing that we don't enjoy as much is small talk. We don't really like talking about the weather. Like, we want a conversation that has a clear start and finish and is well defined. So that's what I love about this, is that you actually don't have to have that specific conversation until someone decides that, yes, I want to talk to you about this. So I'm going to book a call. And that way, when you get on that phone call, you can actually have that meaningful conversation versus saying the same thing over and over again about who you are and what you do and why it's great. You can just package all of that up in a video.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to laugh with the talk about the weather and the networking. I mean, I'm an introvert as well, and I love doing this podcast. I love talking to people, and when people hear me say I'm an introvert, I say, but you get on this podcast and you talk to perfect strangers that you haven't met before. I say, but you've expressed that really well, because I do get excited by having a meaningful conversation around a topic and digging into this as we're doing today. And yet going into a room full of people, most of whom are strangers, and trying to strike up a conversation and as you say, get questions about what do you think of the weather,
right?
To me is like, oh no.
You dread it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think you said something important, and you do emphasize that. You did emphasize it early on when you were describing the system, and that's, you can't forget that it is about building relationships with people. Mm-hmm. So what I find annoying and frustrates me a bit is that people feel that when they get online and they have all these tools and they can blast emails out at people because this tool allows you to broadcast one email to, a list of thousands if you have a list of thousands. But I heard somebody say yesterday, I think it was in a book, an audio book that I'm listening to, about human marketing, and it asked the question, what gives you the right to fill my inbox with emails that are not important to me? And I think that kind of, to me, that's a snapshot of what's wrong today with how people use these automated tools. I mean, the automation is fabulous, and you've outlined a great system that marries it with the personal aspect. And I think that's where it's really good.
Yeah. And also there's just so much noise these days. The difference in the way that it was even just a few years ago, versus someone's inbox. I had a friend who I was helping her on her computer, and she had her email open, a tab open, and she had 30,000 emails that were unread. And I looked at her and I said, oh my gosh, how do you handle that? I wouldn't be able to do it. I get stressed when I have 20 emails that are unread. And it's just a matter of understanding that there's so much noise. And with marketing, you really have to cut through the noise. And in order to do that, that person needs to feel like this is a valuable conversation. This is a valuable email. This is something that I am going to enjoy opening and reading and even responding back to. So an email that just says, hey, I have new coaching spots open is just not, it's not enough value. And so we really have to kind of get back to, that storytelling, that engaging people and really getting them to pay attention, and so that we can cut through the noise.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot in what you said there. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper on that, because there's the elements of, okay, you send out an email, that email pops into somebody's email inbox, and some of those people may have 30,000 unread emails. So what do you do in the first instance? Because all you've got is the title really that they see at that point. So what do you do with that title that attracts enough attention that makes them want to open that email and read further?
Actually, I start a little bit before that. So the first thing that I do is I make sure that I provide something really, really high value in exchange for that email address. In the past, people were able to do just an ebook or like a short PDF. But in general, I want to really provide something that's high value and very specific. If it's just a PDF, but it's very specific to the pain point that they have, then I'm 100% fine with that. And so that first email will say something like, reply back and let me know that you got it, or reply back and tell me what your biggest struggle is with this, or reply back and just say hi. And when I do that, the first reply can often, if they reply back, it'll often whitelist my email address so that every email that they get after that is more likely to land in their inbox and just get delivered, period. Then from there, in that very first email, I tell them what to look out for. I say, in the next email or in the next few emails, I'm going to share with you this, this, and this. And it's essentially creating an open loop in their mind so that they're waiting for that next email. Now I can start playing around with engaging subject lines and making sure the content is really good. But I think before they get on your list and that very first email, it's so important to start that journey of expectation, essentially, so that they know what to expect and that they're excited when your emails pop into their inbox.
That's great advice. I like the building the expectation and also having a sense of continuity throughout those emails. Now, you mentioned the starting off with something that is incredible in value. So what's the process you use for doing that? I mean, I know you've got a free training program on your website that basically says, hey, this is really valuable. It's a client gaining system. It can 10 times your revenue. So somebody looking for that, obviously that's appealing, but how do you set that up so that it really is valuable and people actually see the value and take action on it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things that you can offer first is a free training. Before I get there, sometimes I'll do shorter videos on YouTube. So I love video. Video is my medium. For some people, it's podcasting. For others, it might be blogging, but I really love video. So I have a relatively active presence on YouTube where I'm constantly creating videos. And the videos that I create are super high value, and they're specifically targeted to questions that I know my ideal client might have. And instead of holding back and saying something like, well, this is what I share with clients, or, I'm only going to give you a little bit, I actually just answer the entire question. And that way, once they come to the training, or they come to my website, or however they decide to continue the journey, they're that much more excited because they know that I've already added value to their life. And like I said, I think that a training, slide presentation or something where you're walking them through the steps, I think that's the highest value that you can give someone. Gives them an opportunity to hear your voice, to see your teaching style, to learn a little bit more about what you do, but also to see the value that you provide. And I don't hold back at all inside of that presentation. I share everything that I feel like they need in order to make the decision to move forward with it. And I want them to just be very clear by the end of it. And this is what I recommend to my clients as well. What you're sharing in that presentation is just anything that ideal client needs to be very clear on their next steps. It might be working with you, but it might not. And if they feel like you've been a helpful consultant during the process, it's going to be that much easier for them to make the decision to work with you if they want to get help with that specific problem. But if they feel like they came to the presentation and they didn't really get anything except for a sales pitch, well, then they're just going to want to go work with someone else because they still have the problem. They signed up for your presentation,
That's right. Yeah.
But they might not want to work with you.
Yeah. I really like that. And a lot of people say that, well, if you give away everything, they're not going to come work with you. But I've heard many people recently that have the same philosophy, and we have the same philosophy here, but I've heard it articulated really well recently where somebody said that if people take away from that presentation enough information that they can go do it themselves, they will go do it themselves, but they will become your best ambassadors, because when somebody sees them being successful, they'll say, oh, I learned all this from the videos or the workshop that LaTisha puts on. And so other people will come and look at your workshops, and they may not want to do it themselves. They may want to get your help to do it.
Exactly. And I think that's the main point that a lot of people don't realize is that you do have people who are DIY people. They are fine with doing it themselves. So yeah, give them what they need to go try it themselves. But there's going to be people who come and watch it and they don't want to do it themselves. And so those are the people that I'm speaking to when I essentially make my offer at the end of the presentation. I'm speaking to the person who they want to shrink the timeline. They want to be able to get a guided process. They want to be able to get help. They want to know that they're doing the right thing versus trying to, kind of stumble in the dark. And they're willing to pay for the privilege of having somebody walk them through that process. And it's really as simple as that. But there's no need to hold back to say, well, you've got to pay me for this information. Because number one, I really prefer not to have clients who feel like, well, I'm only signing up because there's something that I feel like I don't have, and you have something I feel like I don't have, because once they do start working with you, they might say something like, well, I could have done this myself. So those people, I want them to go ahead and try it and do it themselves. And then I'd rather just work with the people who want to get help.
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. And I think there are, as you said, there are people out there that are DIY people and they'll want to do it themselves as far as they can. But there's also another group of people, and they're ones that say, my time is best spent on what I do well in the business, and everything else I will get an expert to come help me with that, because that's the way I succeed. So that's the other side of the DIY audience, and those are the ones that you really want on board.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, LaTisha. This has been fabulous, and I could go on talking marketing for ages, but I think we're getting near the end of our interview, so it's probably something that we have to save for another one. I'd like to move on to the Buzz, which is our innovation round, and it's designed to help our audience who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field with some tips from your experience. So I've got 5 questions, and hopefully you'll give us some more insightful answers that will inspire someone to go and do something awesome today.
Great. So, sounds good.
What's the number one thing you think anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I would say to be more innovative, the number one thing that you can do is to remove as many distractions as possible. I often will go on a low information diet where I'm no longer consuming, all these articles, like all the noise that's out there. Yeah. And I do a low information diet for a little bit so that I can really get down to basics and listen to myself. And then that's when ideas start coming up. So I feel like that's the number one thing that you can do is just remove distractions.
Great advice. So a bit of self-awareness, but in a quiet space.
Yeah.
All right. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas or new products?
Learning to become a co-creator. I am the type of person that I like to do it myself. I like to, I like to do it all myself because I want to be able to pat myself on the back and say, good job, you did it. But learning to become a co-creator is the best thing that I've done in order to develop, new ideas and products. And that's simply asking my audience what they would like, asking them the questions that dive a little bit deeper, those survey questions. And then I can go back to the idea that I originally had and make it the best that it can be, not just for me being excited to present it, but for them as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I mean, there's so many layers of that, isn't there? There's, first of all, if your idea initially that you had is of no interest to anyone really, or it's way off target, then it saves you from doing all the work to build what it is before finding that out. And the second thing is it gives you the opportunity to change the idea, adapt the idea to match what the needs are that people have told you.
Absolutely.
All right. What do you have a resource that you use most often?
I have a lot. I would say, since we talked about sales funnels a lot, or the webinar sales funnel or whatnot, the one that I use in order to maintain and manage all my sales funnels is a system called ClickFunnels. So I actually really like that. I really respect the founders as well. So that's one of my favorite tools in order to run my sales funnels.
Okay, so that's the total system from doing the advertising, connecting that to the webinar or the videos, and then running the email marketing campaign following up from that.
Yep. I have the highest tier, which allows you to do all of that.
Okay, great. All right. What's the best way to keep a client on track?
I set expectations at the start. So I'm all about setting expectations. When I first start with a client, I typically give them a goal sheet and I say, what are some of your goals and things that you'd like to accomplish as a result of us working together? And even when I have clients come into courses, the first thing I ask them is to write down what they desire to get out of the program. And essentially, I am bringing those with my one-on-one clients. I bring that back up in each call and each interaction, kind of talk about those goals so that we do stay on track. If it's especially for one-on-one clients, if it's something I feel like is going to slow us down, then I do that, offer that as a done for you service. So for example, I just had a client where she needed a website, but she wasn't really familiar with how to set it up. And so instead of trying to teach her, which would have just taken too much time, I just brought in someone to quickly, put up like a one-page website so that she could keep going and moving on to the next piece.
Yeah, I like that last bit. I hadn't thought of things in that way where you run into a barrier. Yeah, I might have to steal that idea. Okay, what's the number one thing you think anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
I love this question. Number one thing you can do is just be you. And that is because there are lots of other people who teach webinars. There are lots of other people who help with marketing. Like, I am not the only one in my space doing what I do. And if I wasn't that very clear on the fact that people come to work with me because they want to work with LaTisha, then I could see myself floundering. So for anyone who's listening to this, my encouragement to you is to bring more of yourself into your marketing. Talk about the quirky things that you think that no one's really interested in, especially as a service provider, because people are hiring you because you're you. So if you enjoy ziplining and you just went ziplining in Mexico, then talk about that. You can transition that story into a conversation about your services, but people are going to remember that and they're going to want to work with you because they like ziplining also. So it's just a matter of being yourself and sharing that in your marketing.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me, I was having a conversation with my business coach yesterday and we were talking about this kind of thing in terms of, so I'm doing a new podcast, a solo podcast called Tales of Marketing Transformation, and I'm telling stories on that. So it's very much along the lines of what you've talked about just recently. And the stories have a purpose. So there's a lesson for marketing within the story. And my business coach said, what you need to bring out is the wisdom frame. So take a story, because I said I've sort of got about 7 or 8 stories lined up, but I'm thinking out, I want to do a 20-episode season, and I'm thinking, I'm going to run out of stories. and she said, and I said, but there's probably just mundane things that happen every day that I don't consider a story. That really is a story because there's a lesson in it. And she talked about this idea of the wisdom frame. So if you take the ziplining example, well, what wisdom frame comes out of that? And it may be that, hey, it was way up in the trees very high. I'm just imagining this because I'm scared of heights. So I'm really scared to let go of the rope at the beginning and just fly down the line. And so how does this play out in business? Where am I scared in business? So that might be a way to kind of bring that in. So, I really like that. And then I thought about another friend of mine, Kim Doyle, who talks about, she's a content marketer and she talks about everything being content. And it occurred to me that, hey, everything's a story and everything is a metaphor for something else that's going on.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
So that's great. The be you. All right. Well, what's the future for you then, LaTisha, and your business?
My vision for the business is to reach lots and lots and lots and lots of women, lots of coaches who want to transform other lives, and they feel stuck because even though they have a purpose and they have a desire to help others, they're just having a hard time with the marketing side. So my goal is to create courses and reach as many people as possible with my courses, people who want to come on the retreats that I host each year so that they can just continue to live in that high vibration and help as many people as they want. I really want my business to be kind of the starter that reaches, knocks over the other dominoes that knock over other dominoes. And that's essentially what I see for my business.
Yeah. I like the domino vision. It's beautiful. I did want to actually ask you about the retreats that you run, but because we do some of that ourselves, but it is getting on in time, so we might have to schedule another episode.
Yeah, sounds good.
So what's the number one piece of advice then you'd give to any business owner who wants to be a leader in their field?
Ooh, that's a great question. Have an opinion. Don't just go with the flow just because, or go with the general consensus just because everyone is saying do it this way. Have your own method, your own way, your own special, unique, your special sauce, and don't be afraid to share that opinion, because if you want to be a leader, that means that by nature, you're not a follower. So that's the idea behind that.
Yeah, great advice. And there's a lot now where people are saying this is one way to stand out. So that's not to say that you take a contrary opinion just to draw attention, but
right.
The converse of that is that people have kind of kept their opinions to themselves because they thought that the traditional way of doing things was actually wrong, but right. They didn't have the courage to say so. So get out there and challenge the status quo if that's what you think there is something wrong with.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, this has been great, LaTisha. Where can people reach out and get in touch and say thank you for what you've shared today?
So I am most active on Facebook, and you can find me on Facebook at LaTisha TV. I also am pretty active on Instagram, Twitter, not so much, but I'm on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, if you'd like to find all of those social media platforms, you can just go to LaTishaStyles.com. When you go to the website, you'll see all of my social media platforms there. You'll be able to check out the training that I have. If you'd like to check it out and watch it, it's right there on the website. So it's LaTishaStyles, LaTishaStyles.com.
All right. And we'll have links to all of that in the show notes as well, so people can just click through and check it all out. So finally then, who would you like me to interview on a future InnovaBuzz podcast and why?
That's a great question. I think someone who would be a really good fit is a young woman named Kayla Sloan. She has had an amazing transformation. She started a business as a virtual assistant, transitioned into a project manager, and then started helping other women to start their own virtual assistant business. And her story is just amazing. So I would definitely recommend connecting with her. Also, she's a great conversationalist.
All right. Well, we might get an introduction to Kayla from you, and look forward to talking to her on the podcast. So yeah. Thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us today so generously. I've really enjoyed this. I could keep going for ages on this topic of marketing, being a marketer myself, and you've got lots of philosophies that I absolutely agree with 100%. So I think we've got a lot there in common. And so I'm really looking forward to staying in touch, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, LaTisha. I hope you enjoyed that thoroughly fascinating and engaging conversation with LaTisha, and like me, found a lot of really valuable information in what she shared. There are so many exceptionally useful tips and lessons in that interview. Some of the highlights for me were getting clear about who your audience is before beginning a conversation, before doing your Facebook advertising, and the importance of testing things and getting feedback and measuring results so that you can adapt and improve. I'd love to know what you took away from LaTisha's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/LaTisha Styles. That is LaTishaStyles, all lowercase, or one word, you know the drill by now, InnovaBuzz.co/LaTisha Styles. You'll also find contact information there for getting in touch with LaTisha, as well as links to her website where you can access her client gaining system, as well as the other resources we spoke about in the conversation. LaTisha suggested we interview Kayla Sloan, who helps entrepreneurs set up systems to streamline their businesses, on a future InnovaBuzz podcast. So Kayla, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of LaTisha Styles. Remember to visit InnovaBizz.co/VIP to access the Transformational Marketing Hub and all its free and exceptionally useful information to help you transform your marketing. Stay connected. Subscribe to the InnovaBuzz podcast so you'll make sure you'll never miss another episode. Head on over to InnovaBizz.co/subscribe. We'd also love you to leave us a review because what you think matters to us. Take some of the ideas you've heard today and apply them in your business. Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, or questions, then share them in the comments below the blog post. And remember, if you want to get better marketing results than you ever have, join our fantastic Facebook community at the Tales of Marketing Transformation Facebook group. All you have to do is go to innovabiz.co/TMA. It's free to join. I hope to see you there soon. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBizz. Remember to be awesome and keep innovating.